Welcome to Zyra Quiz and the Pokémon 30th Anniversary Quiz. Test your knowledge of Pokémon from the very first starters to legendary myths. Get ready to challenge yourself with easy, medium, hard, and extreme questions. How many Pokémon can you name correctly, and will you catch them all in your memory? Let's begin. Which Pokémon is known as the Mouse Pokémon? Pikachu, the tiny yellow electric mouse that's become the face of Pokémon everywhere. What type is Bulbasaur? Grass and Poison, a plant-powered starter that can take on many battles. Which Pokémon evolves into Charizard? Charmander, the little fire lizard whose flames grow fiercer with each evolution. What is the first Pokémon in the National Pokédex? Bulbasaur, the green starter with a seed on its back ready to bloom. Which Pokémon is famous for saying Pika? Pikachu, the energetic electric mouse everyone instantly recognizes. What type is Squirtle? Water, the tiny turtle that shoots streams of water with surprising force. Which Pokémon is known as the Fire Lizard Pokémon? Charmander, a fiery little companion whose tail flame shows its life force. What type is Jigglypuff? Normal and Fairy, the balloon-like singer that can put anyone to sleep. Who is Ash Ketchum's first Pokémon? Pikachu, his loyal electric partner who refused to fit in a Pokeball. Which legendary Pokémon is on the cover of Red? Charizard, the mighty fire dragon that dominates battles with blazing power. Which Pokémon is number 25? Pikachu, the iconic electric mouse that became a global superstar. Which Pokémon evolves into Wartortle? Squirtle, the water-loving turtle that grows stronger with every shell attack. What is Meowth's type? Normal, the clever cat Pokémon that talks and schemes for Team Rocket. What is the evolved form of Eevee that is Ice type? Glaceon, the frozen evolution that glides gracefully on ice. Which Pokémon is known as the Thunder Pokémon? Zapdos, the legendary bird that controls lightning across the skies. Which legendary Pokémon can control time? Dialga, the mighty dragon that bends time to its will. What is Mewtwo's type? Psychic, the genetically enhanced Pokémon with mind-bending powers. Which Pokémon evolves into Alakazam? Kadabra, the spoon-bending genius whose powers multiply with age. What type combination is Gyarados? Water and flying, the sea serpent whose rage can destroy entire coastlines. What is the evolved form of Machoke? Machamp, the four-armed powerhouse built for unbeatable strength. Which Pokémon has the ability Intimidate? Gyarados, the colossal serpent that strikes fear into opponents instantly. What is the mega evolution of Charizard called? Mega Charizard X or Y, the fiery dragon that becomes even more unstoppable. Which Pokémon is number 150? Mewtwo, the legendary psychic clone created in a lab with unmatched power. Which Pokémon evolves into Butterfly? Caterpie, the tiny worm that transforms into a beautiful flying butterfly. What type is Dragonite? Dragon and flying, the gentle dragon whose strength belies its kind nature. Which Pokémon can transform into any other Pokémon? Ditto, the shape-shifting trickster that can copy anyone flawlessly. Which legendary Pokémon is said to have created the Pokémon world? Arceus, the godlike being whose power shaped the entire universe. What is the signature move of Pikachu in the anime? Thunderbolt, the electric attack that sparks excitement and awe. Which Pokémon is number 494? Victini, the victory Pokémon that brings luck to all who meet it. Which Pokémon has the ability Levitate and is Poison Ghost type? Gengar, the mischievous shadow that floats above the ground unseen. What is the evolved form of Riolu? Lucario, the aura-sensing fighter with unmatched speed and skill. Which legendary Pokémon is known as the time travel Pokémon? Celebi, the forest guardian that hops through time with ease. Which Pokémon is number 700? Sylveon, the fairy evolved Eevee that charms friends and foes alike. Which Pokémon evolves from Porygon? Porygon 2, the upgraded digital Pokémon that adapts perfectly to tech. Which Pokémon can only evolve when traded holding a specific item? Onix into Steelix with a metal coat, the rock snake strengthened by steel. Which Pokémon has the ability Multiscale? Dragonite, the dragon that takes half damage when at full health, a true tank. Which Pokémon is known as the Sea Basin Pokémon? Kyogre, the giant whale that can expand oceans with a single breath. Which legendary Pokémon is known as the Renegade Pokémon? Giratina, the ghostly dragon that rules the distortion world. What is the unique typing of Aegislash? Steel and Ghost, the sword Pokémon that defends and attacks with style. Which Pokémon can only evolve during the day? Eevee into Espeon, the psychic companion that thrives in sunlight. Which Pokémon is number 638? Cobalion, the steel and fighting knight that leads the Swords of Justice. Which Pokémon has the signature move, Judgment? Arceus, the all-powerful Pokémon that unleashes judgment on foes. Which Pokémon has the ability Wonder Guard? Shijinja, the fragile shell that only takes damage from super effective hits. Which Pokémon is number 718? Zygarde, the guardian of the ecosystem that shifts forms to protect nature. Which legendary Pokémon trio represents sky, sea, and land? Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. Which Pokémon has the highest base attack stat in Generation 1? Mewtwo, the ultimate psychic powerhouse of the original games. Which Pokémon is known as the DNA Pokémon? Genesect, the ancient bug upgraded with futuristic technology. What type is Marshadow? Fighting and Ghost, the elusive shadow that strikes silently in the night. Which Pokémon evolves using a Sunstone? Gloom into Bellossom, the flower that blooms brilliantly under the sun. Which legendary Pokémon represents time, space, and antimatter? Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, the trio that rules the universe's dimension.
Thanks for watching.